In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, looking at a massive and very major severe weather outbreak that's going to be happening over the coming days through a little bit into the weekend for the eastern seaboard. This is going to be a 3-day severe weather and tornado outbreak likely. Unfortunately, parts of the plains, Midwest, deep south, and southeast, even into the mid-Atlantic, need to be on high alert for these thunderstorms. And there is more storms like this on the way, maybe not quite as bad as this one is expected to be very, very major. But overall, looking through the entire month of March, things look very, very active. Very warm at times. There will be cool downs though. I'm a gardener myself, so it's a little frustrating that it's so warm and so nice for the plants, and then it's just too cold on these certain days for the plants to really be out there. So it's a lot of back and forth right now, but it is still very early. So I guess I'm just thankful that it's warm at all. Let's just dive into things though. We take a look here at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. And this is going to be for March 19th through 23rd. We do see a colder than normal pattern in the west, and this is called a negative PNA really. And what we typically see is the warm air thrive in the central and eastern states, and we do see that happening as a result here. Precipitation, as you can see, is going to be really, really active throughout a lot of the Northwest into parts of the Rockies. And then for a lot of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, deep south, up into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. A little drier for the Southwest, a little drier across the Southeast, and a little drier for the North Central states. As we take a look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, it doesn't look the coldest for the West. It actually looks a little cold for the Northwest, but when we look at the Southwest, it's warm. When we look at Alaska, it's warm. So this is a neutral PNA pattern. A little hard to break down, but as of now, the Climate Prediction Center does have warmer than normal conditions still prevailing for the central and especially the eastern states here for March 21st through 27th. As we just take a look at the precipitation pattern during this time frame, nothing too much changes. We see a dry southwest here and a wet northwest into the Rockies, as well as pretty much everywhere east of the Mississippi River, and even, as you can see, a little bit west of it as well, but everywhere east of the Mississippi is above normal precipitation. Looking back at the past 14 days of temperatures, we can see things have been cooler across some of the west coast there, and really, really warm across the middle of the nation, and then leaning warmer for the eastern seaboard, and that is continuing to warm almost every single day. So we should see this get more and more red and orange as we move through the month of March. Taking a look at your European model, we can tell that by this afternoon, before you're even watching this video, I guess I'll move it forward towards this evening. And actually, I just looked at the radar a little bit ago. This is definitely worth noting because this is for 11 p.m., but we have heavy thunderstorms in here. Very high precipitation popping up on radar in these thunderstorms, even some hook echoes. So I am a little bit concerned for a little bit of tornadic activity today. Also hail, just seeing the super high reflectivity on radar is telling me that hail is a big possibility. So be on the lookout if you're in the deep south or even up into Tennessee and Kentucky. There is very heavy thunderstorms kind of scattered about this area. So it's hit or miss, but really intense ones. Even in the kind of valley of California, we've had heavier thunderstorms like that popping up as well. And we're seeing snowfall for the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and Rockies at this time. As we move towards tomorrow afternoon, what we see is this low, this one that we have been talking about for so long. It's basically on our doorstep now. 975 right there over, I would say, southwestern Kansas. We do see some snowfall here to the west of it for parts of the Rockies. And more concerningly, we do have these thunderstorms beginning to fire up for parts of Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana here. And the bigger threat is going to be overnight here. It's important to note that these Storm Prediction Center outlooks go from morning to morning, not 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. So this 2 a.m. time frame right here on Saturday is still the Friday Storm Prediction Center outlook. So we have this intense low, now mostly centered around Iowa and Minnesota, and we have strong thunderstorms popping up along the Midwest for the most part, and for parts of the deeper south. Wind being the biggest threat in here. So damaging wind going to be a big time concern. There is a rather elevated tornado risk and hail risk as well, as this is a moderate risk of severe weather, and moderate is a little bit misleading. Moderate would make you think that it's a middle of the pack kind of risk. I would say, you know, uh, a 3 out of 5 type risk, but really it's a 4 out of 5. So it's basically the second highest risk level. And the Storm Prediction Center is very selective with when they place high risks. It's very rarely used. So moderate risk is a higher risk, and we're seeing that for tomorrow, Friday night into Saturday, for these exact areas. Of course, we will dive into the Storm Prediction Center outlooks at the end of this video, keep in mind. And interestingly, this is going to be a very bad day tomorrow night, but we are more concerned about Saturday afternoon as we get this secondary low developing here for Louisiana and Arkansas. Just so much energy in this pocket here. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. This has a moderate risk as well for the day on Saturday into Sunday. And I really feel like if there's a chance of a high risk, it is on this Saturday day, and it's probably between Mississippi and Alabama. Damaging tornadoes, could be a tornado outbreak, seeing numerous major tornadoes, and again, damaging wind, hail, all of this is a threat. So back-to-back moderate risk days, which is a high-end severe weather event for the most part. And as we move towards Sunday, kind of afternoon / evening, we do see these reaching this southeast and mid-Atlantic area, where as of now, we don't have a categorical risk, but the percentages that they're giving us in the long range do match up with at least a slight risk, which is a level 2 out of 5. So at the very least, nasty thunderstorms for this area as well, with probably the most prevalent threat being the damaging wind, but could see hail, could see some tornado warnings pop up. So potentially a 3-day major severe weather event. After we are through with that, by Monday afternoon, we're kind of moving past that. That has been a big time talking point for at least a week here. So as we move past that, we're going to have to look forward towards other things. And for one thing, we have this storm system across the west, snowfall in the mountains, rainfall in the lower elevations. Again, Monday is likely a very cold day along the east compared to what we're seeing mostly. So expect a lot of 40s and 50s as highs. It's going to be cooler than normal. As we move towards Tuesday, we warm right back up though, and we end up with this low over eastern Colorado once again. Snowfall for parts of the Rockies and northern plains here as a result of that. I want to take us towards Wednesday afternoon, and this is right around when we start to see this become a thunderstorm threat. 992 here. We get heavier snowfall for parts of the plains and upper Midwest. Very heavy. And we're starting to see these thunderstorms firing up here. It's important to note kind of the structure of this low. So we have the cold front behind here and underneath. And then we have this warm front out ahead. That warm front is just funneling this rich Gulf moisture and temperatures up into this eastern corridor to the east of that stronger low. And what we're seeing is this cold, dry Canadian air getting pulled down underneath towards this cold front. So we're getting a lot of action in here. We're seeing these thunderstorms flare up between the cold and dry air and the warm and humid air. And likely, as you can see, over the coming hours after that, we're going to start to see thunderstorms spark up. This is 2 a.m. on Thursday. We are seeing thunderstorms, potentially even severe weather in here for parts of the Midwest and deep south for Thursday very, very early. As we're reaching towards Thursday afternoon, it doesn't look super intense, but we do have isolated and scattered about thunderstorms along that cold front still. And this low is ripping. It is just bombing out almost 983, down 10 millibars in like 12 hours. So a very substantial drop. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this could be a little bit more filled out than this. It might just end up being like this, but with a low intensifying that greatly and becoming that intense very quickly, you would think that that cold front would develop a lot of moisture. And what we see happening over the hours after that is it moves over the Appalachian Mountain Range. We continue to see these heavy showers and thunderstorms for the eastern states for Thursday evening into very early on Friday. And again, we're left with very cold air on Friday the 21st. Saturday the 22nd here, what we're seeing is a little bit of a quieter pattern. We do have this weak low over the Great Lakes. We have some activity across the Northwest where we're seeing snowfall for the Rockies. Cascades in here as well. And as we move towards Sunday, what we see is a sign of the times, I would say, of just the season we're in, is no real low pressure system, but we're getting these spring and summertime thunderstorms where they're just kind of flaring up throughout the south central states and the deep south. If you guys live down there, you know that the summertime looks like this almost daily. So we're starting to get those hints of that type of weather here from this model. So more active thunderstorms, even when not associated with a real major low. Although we do get a major low developing from this by Monday afternoon here on the 24th. This is very far out, so keep in mind. But we do have this cold front behind, warm front out ahead. So we get that same Gulf air moving northward with that. And we get this Canadian air pulling down towards the cold front. And this would likely feature a severe weather threat to some extent if we see something like this occur. I say that because at the 10-day range, I mean, we might not see something like this. So there's enough time to where things can change a lot. But if it's anything like our previous system, the models might just stay pretty consistent with it, and we might just end up seeing something very similar to what we saw 10 days out. As we move towards Tuesday afternoon, between Monday and Tuesday is when this really arrives for the eastern seaboard, but Tuesday afternoon, it's all but moved out basically. We're in a much quieter pattern, cooler for that single day again, and Wednesday warms right back up. And by Wednesday the 26th here, we're beyond hours 300. So seriously, grain of salt, guys, critical in this type of situation. But the Cascades in Sierra Nevada have snowfall, rainfall out west, and as we keep going with it, it looks like we're getting a tandem team of lows up here across the Midwest and Northern Plains. Wouldn't surprise me one bit to see another cold front, warm front type scenario develop again, as that's just been the trend. So very, very active here on this European model. The GFS model, we're just going to kind of break it down, but we're very, very similar with our first system. There's almost no differences. We get this second one here. We get the thunderstorms across the Midwest, deep south. And as we move this one into the eastern states, it is more intense than the European model showed. This low is further south, which might play a role in that. And there's so much cold air moving in with this one around Thursday the 20th that we do get some back-end snowfall. And typically these types of events don't lead to much in the way of accumulation because, as you can see, like let's look at eastern Pennsylvania, for instance, it's getting snow here by 11 a.m. on Thursday, but just a few hours prior here, as we just move this back, they were seeing a band of moderate to heavy rainfall. So you get that saturated ground followed by a little bit of snowfall perhaps. Not the most ideal situation for accumulation, but I do suspect on the front end of a lot of this, especially in this corridor here, there could be thunderstorms and even severe weather associated with this second system as well nearby the 20th. As we keep going, we get a couple of these more minor systems like we see there across the Mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley. We get a more major system here around the 24th, so we get this stronger low here near Iowa, thunderstorms and severe weather perhaps underneath. So again, more similar systems overall. And then we get another massive one developing here for Saturday on the 29th. And again, this is the very far extended range, hours 384. So please take it with a grain of salt. But we get another long, dragging cold front with a substantial warm front out ahead of things. And likely another major severe weather event somewhere in here. If this occurs the way it shows, which again, at hours 384, your odds of that are beginning to dwindle. Although sometimes we can get some idea of the specifics at that range, but more so it's going to be valuable to find the trends and really just the idea of the pattern we're going to be in based on what the model is showing. And right now what this is telling me is these plains and Midwest lows, these intense ones, are going to continue through the month of March. We're seeing 2, 3, 4 across just the next 2 weeks or so on both of these models, and that is substantial, especially for only being in March. I mentioned this yesterday, but this just feels like April or May. Really, really active. As we take a look at the total precipitation, really large amounts, especially in the Northwest now. In the prior days and weeks, we've seen the Southwest be above average, but I suspect that we're moving more towards just a purely Northwest above average pattern. We do see a good amount here for the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and then really everywhere east of there. As we get these numerous storms moving through. So looking at the anomalies, again, Northwest above average here, Southwest near normal to below average across the Southern Plains, but above average once we take a look at like the Midwest and a lot of the East here. Snowfall, we're really just going to look at one of these because they're both kind of the same idea. We're getting awfully close, I would say. Not awfully close, but we're weeks away from not showing the snowfall map anymore. So we are moving into that territory. But we see the Mountainous West with all of that precipitation coming in, and you can bet on almost all of it being all snow, if not literally all of it. They are going to be seeing monstrous amounts of snowfall, feet and feet and feet of snowfall. Also, parts of the northern plains and upper Midwest, as well as parts of the Great Lakes, could experience some heavier snowfall coming up with these lows moving through, especially if they're kind of gliding underneath this area, because you guys will be to the north of it, and that would be like the cold and snowy side of the storm. That is what this model is picking up on. But for most of the east and most of the areas, in the Ohio Valley, and take all that southward, we're practically looking at a wrapped up and said and done winter at this point. Taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlooks today, we have this general thunderstorm risk area for the West Coast and into a lot of the Rockies, parts of the Midwest, and parts of the kind of Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley there. All of that light green is where we expect general thunderstorms, but anything is possible. So I always say heed every watch, warning, and advisory. The darker green area here for parts of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, where we are seeing very, very heavy and substantial thunderstorms as we speak. That is your level 1 marginal risk, and that is where we expect isolated severe weather events to occur. Just keep that in mind. As we take a look at day 2, which will be for Friday into, again, Saturday morning. These go from about 8 a.m. to 8 a.m., not 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. And as you can see, this is going to be a big one. Again, we have the general thunderstorm risk areas, the darker green marginal risk area where we expect isolated severe weather. The yellow is your slight risk. We expect scattered about severe weather in there. The orange in there is going to be your level 3 enhanced risk, where we expect things to begin to become a little bit more widespread as far as severe weather events are concerned. And then from southeastern Iowa into parts of Illinois, Missouri, a little bit of Arkansas, a little bit of Tennessee, and a little bit of Kentucky here. This is where we have a level 4 moderate risk of severe weather for the day and night tomorrow on Friday the 14th into Saturday the 15th. And again, that's level 4 out of 5. So that is almost the highest level of severe weather that they issue, basically. So very, very big day coming tomorrow and night. For the day after, it's the same exact setup, except we're looking more at the deep south, like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Again, those color grades still stay the same. I don't want anybody in the marginal or the slight risk to be like, okay, well, I don't have to pay attention because we're not in the orange or red. These outlooks can be off, and oftentimes if they're off, it's not based on the intensity. You won't see a moderate risk oftentimes where you're like, okay, that shouldn't have been a moderate risk. It's more so where we will see the location be a little bit off sometimes, where maybe a lot of the severe weather happens in Tennessee and Kentucky in this instance, and probably still get a lot in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, but maybe that worser outlook should have been extended northward. So I don't want anybody to not take this thing seriously, because pretty much everybody is in the way of a massive and almost historic low pressure system with really, really solid structure between the cold front, warm front, and all the air masses. This has all the potential in the world. So please, please, please heed every watch, warning, and advisory. And for Friday and Saturday, depending on where you're at, pay attention at all times. Have your phone ready. Have some way to get alerts from these things, because I suspect it could be a very, very tornadic event and a very intense severe weather outbreak in general. Finally, for day 4, this will be for Sunday the 16th into probably very early on Monday the 17th. We will see probably a slight risk for northern Florida, parts of eastern Georgia, eastern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, eastern West Virginia, eastern Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey there, almost all of Maryland, DC's in there, and all of Delaware, where at least a slight risk is likely. So keep in mind that there is bad thunderstorms coming to this area east of the Appalachian Mountains for Sunday into maybe the very early hours of Monday. It's a little bit of an overnight risk the further east you are in this yellow area. Really concerning all around for the full 3-day event. So again, pay attention, have a way to get all those warnings. It is super critical. Be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.